Ronan O'Gara, a very good morning. How are you keeping?
Johnny, good morning. You've had your coffee this morning, anyway. You're full of beans.
Sorry, I missed that. Me, Ronan, is it?
Both of you, you're in good form for it's an hour behind where you are, so it's only what 10 to 8, is it? So you're.
Yeah.
Well, I actually thought you were in studio this morning for a while, so I got up extra early and everything. But then I was told
you did a few extra press ups and a few sit ups and burpees. I like it. Good man, Johnny.
Burpees, God.
You just missed his rendition of the New Zealand national anthem. So the blood is pumping here in studio for a massive 3-test series. Can I ask you first of all, Ronan, about the All Blacks and just about maybe the culture that you would have absorbed in your time during your time in New Zealand? Like it does strike me that after the winter that they've had, it would be a very All Blacks thing for them to completely come out of the traps racing this summer and just not to lay down a marker as such, but to have taken everything that they've learned from those Ireland and France games in particular last November, and we see all the lessons corrected over the course of this 3-test series.
Yeah, there's a fair amount to get through there and what you've addressed. I think what jumps out at me straight away is I was kind of trying to analyse the game, and you look at, obviously the models are quite similar, but what is probably, and I probably know the New Zealand players better than the Irish players because I've kind of coached them more recently for a period of time, but I think what's gone completely under the radar over here is that Scott Robertson has led the Crusaders to a 6-peat. So there's very few sporting organisations in any sport that have achieved that in the modern professional era, okay? But yet you look at the 23 playing tomorrow for New Zealand, and I think there's only, 6 starters, which means there's 9 non-Crusaders players, and I think there's only 2 more on the bench. But if you look at it in terms, I suppose, the dominant force in Irish rugby has been Leinster, and they're obviously loaded in the Irish team. So for me, from what I do know from spending time down there and looking from afar, I think the New Zealand team is far from established. It's far from proven. I think they're 15 months out from the World Cup yet. In a lot of the selection, there'll be a lot of uncertainty because I think what is obvious and evident for me is that I probably, my first season there, my second last season there would have been a brilliant tie-over when a lot of the legends of the game, I think, finished up. You look at Owen Franks, Kieran Reid, obviously Richie McCaw was in and around the environment, Matt Todd, Ryan Crotty, Tim Bateman, who's probably not well known, but he had an incredible rugby brain in him, Israel Dag. So, Dan was in and around the environment. A lot of, I suppose, really experienced, established leaders, not alone in the Crusaders setup, but in the All Black setup that were, I suppose, stepping away from the top table. Now, it seems to me that they're, I suppose, trying to establish a new team epitomised by, who's their number 10? Richie Mwanga. Plays magic rugby for the Crusaders, yet I don't think we see the real Richie in the black jersey that we see for the Crusaders. So they're going with Bowden Barrett, but his brother Geordie can goal kick, which helps him because there are very few rugby players like Bowden Barrett in the world, but his Achilles heel would be goal kicking. But that's, I suppose, softened by the fact that his brother can step up and bang him over from 60 yards.
This has been a conversation that's been happening for a while, so that they've been trying to figure out how to fill that certain void of leadership, certainly when you compare it to the great teams of the early part of the last decade. And I guess they're still trying to figure that out. Even if you go back to the last World Cup, maybe that conversation around tennis is certainly something that you would have been having around 2019. So is that a little bit of an issue for them at the moment, that these repetitive questions still haven't been answered?
It has to be, because only if you even step back another World Cup cycle before that, and even before that, like the midfield was Carter, Nonu, Smith for 10 years. So an awful lot of, I think if you were to go into a pub outside anywhere in Grafton Street and take a poll about name the New Zealand team to play Ireland, it would be fascinating. I'd say the variety of different teams you'd have. There's some players that we're not even that familiar with. There are other guys, that are playing for New Zealand tomorrow that have done very little in Super Rugby. Yet they're looking to, I suppose, prove themselves at test level. The Crusaders have been dominant in Super Rugby. Super Rugby is very, very different to Test Rugby, because Super Rugby, as we know, there's a lot of space. In Test Rugby tomorrow, you won't see space really in the pitch. So I think, for example, the back line, you look at it, they would have trained very, very few times together, let alone play together. So in terms of, I suppose, you're looking at, the potential of the New Zealand team versus the solidity or the proven combinations that Ireland have.
Is that something then that you kind of have to make a decision on this year? That Ian Foster, when he looks at that backline, has to say or have a very good idea of what his backline is going to be heading to France next year? Because as you say, it's that cohesion, it's that understanding that is as important as the individual qualities.
I think it is, yeah, but it's difficult when you have so many, I suppose, good players, but who can become great? If you become great, I think you get a hold of the black jersey. That's probably been the mantra for them for so many number of years. But you look at probably who isn't playing tomorrow as well. The backline that could play a New Zealand A versus New Zealand B would be very, very interesting, because you can go, TJ Perinara, Moanga, Havili, Goodhue, George Bridge. You can play Will Jordan at 15 and any number of wingers on the right wing,
Yeah.
So Quinta Pau at 12 is very much, I suppose, in unproven territory. Ricky Ioni is a phenomenal athlete, but the nuances of playing 13 are very difficult to probably comprehend. Especially, I think Ireland will find joy in the fact that a number of the New Zealanders would be man watchers as opposed to ball watchers. So if for people interested maybe in the technical side of the game, you watch, I think a lot of European players will defend the ball. A lot of Southern Hemisphere teams defend the man. So what that essentially means is that I have this guy in front of me, irrespective whether he has the ball or not. But if he doesn't have the ball, sometimes it becomes a wasted resource. And the fact that I'm staying on him, irrelevant whether he gets the ball or not. But I think the game defensively has moved to where if you have, I suppose, a cohesive unit watching the ball together, you need the ball to score. So I find that a more beneficial way of defending. But I think New Zealand are in transition from, I think, coaching, watching the man to watching the ball. So it'll be interesting for me, I suppose, just as an outsider, watching what way they're going about that, because Ireland are smart under Johnny Sexton. Ireland are smart under everything they learned from Joe Schmidt. And now I think with a new probably layer to their attacking game, it could pose a few more problems for New Zealand that it would have in previous, I suppose, journeys to the South Island.
So you think that you expect New Zealand to transition towards a more European style of defence?
I don't know. That's the only thing that came into my head. I'd be fascinated to see that. You could see in certain tests that their line speed was huge. It wouldn't have been their norm before. They would have kind of pushed up and used the touchline as a defence. But now you find in Test Rugby it's very hard to get the ball off teams, because so many of the international teams are so accurate around the ruck. So holding on to the ball is easy once you had it. I think when you're defending nowadays in rugby, you kind of have to make a dent in the first two phases. Otherwise, you're going to be defending for a long time. Hence, flip that on its head. If you defend well the first two collisions, usually the team with the ball, if it becomes slow, have to kick it on, and that's why you see so much kicking in Test Rugby.
Okay. I'm not sure how much of the Maori game you saw the other day, Ronan. Is it something that worries you at all?
No, I saw the game, but I think it was missed opportunity for a certain amount of players. Obviously, they were probably in a zone where they had everything to gain, but they looked like that they kind of struggled with, I suppose, the pace that New Zealand put on the ball from turnover. I thought their carry game was from New Zealand was impressive, and their change of speed was very impressive. Ireland missed, I think, a few tackles they'd be disappointed with, and that's the beauty of watching a New Zealand team, whether it's June in the Northern Hemisphere or June in the Southern Hemisphere. Their skill levels don't change. Their capacity to handle the ball under pressure in poor weather conditions, I think, sets them apart from a lot of other nations.
Just in general, on this time of year, how hard is it for the Irish players to maintain that levels of intensity and physicality after a long season?
I don't believe it's a long season, though. I think everything is very mapped and very well organised. These are test players where every minute now with GPS and with data is very, very carefully planned. So you go back a month ago and it was all the talk going to New Zealand and the chance to create history. There's been a poor performance against the Maori, against boys that would have nothing probably to do with the test team, so I wouldn't read anything into that. These guys are obviously managed under the central model where the IRFU are in control of what they do. So everything in their player load and in their management, Johnny, would be started from probably Six Nations. How do we win that? Then how do we win a test in New Zealand? And then European Cup, URC. And that's, unless it has changed since my day, but it was very well organised when I was there, and now you're 10 years on and everything has advanced. So I think it would be very, I'd say, disappointing for Andy Farrell if he found some of his players talking about being tired, because there aren't any players near 30 games, I would think.
Yeah, what's interesting when we look back on the game against the Maoris is the ability maybe of Ciaran Frawley to just get a bit more game time under his belt over the next few months. Obviously, he's played a lot of his rugby at 12 over the last season. Ronan, did you see that in his performance at 10 the last day, that he just needs more reps at 10?
Yeah, he just needs more games. He needs more minutes. He needs to make mistakes in that position. He needs to be put into pressure situations more often. I was fascinated. I didn't realise how young he was. He looks very calm, very composed, and seems to have time on the ball, which a lot of great players exhibit from the moment they take the pitch. He doesn't seem flustered. I think there was probably some areas of the game where I think he had preconceived ideas and he decided to go through with it in terms of maybe kicking cross kicks, but I think that will come too. I think he'll be incomparable if he was to play another game and another game and another game in number 10. I think once you get a body of work of 4 or 5 games built up, then we'll have a much better idea if Ciaran Frawley is suitable, which I think he is, to make a big dent at test level. What's not, I suppose, very interesting is the fact that he goes back to the RDS and he plays 4 games against a different opposition
at
where
12.
the outcome, no, or even at 10, where the outcome is 50 points to 12 or 46 points to 13.
But the reality is that he won't get those games at 10 even at the RDS, like if we're going on last season's form or last season's decision making at Leinster.
Yeah, but that's what this tour is about, Owen. I think this is where you put your hand up and this is where you need to kick the door down, and this is where you say, okay, well, I think I have a decision to make here. Am I looking to be a top class 12? If I'm looking to be a top class 12, then I'm going to challenge Robbie Henshaw and Bundyaki for that position. If I want to be top class 10, I need to play 10. It's not going to be possible to not play for my club position and get selected at a higher level to get my position as a number 10. He needs game time. So that's the big decision, I think, for him in the off season, irrespective of how the end of this end of this trip goes from. Where am I going to get 25 games a season playing number 10?
And is it his decision though? Like is it not up to the coaches at Leinster, and is it not up to Andy Farrell? Because it seems that one has made the decision to play him at 10 and one's made a decision to play him at 12.
No, of course that's if he's in contract on, and that's if he's you know what I mean, only he can make that decision. But there comes a time, as you know, with all sports people, the only people who can decide are the individual. So once the individual signs and is committed to the project, then obviously if you're the coach, you have to do what's best for the team as well. You have to do what's best for him. So it means he'll be playing a bit of 10 and 12. But I think for himself, he has probably a few tough questions to ask himself. In a good way.
Yeah, of course.
In an opportunistic way, sorry.
Is the question basically, do I want to play at 10? And if the answer is yes, do I have to leave Leinster to get that?
I think the question is, do I want to be a Test 10? If I want to be a Test 10 and I haven't been playing in that position for the last 2 years, then I need game time week in, week out. But you know, he can force the hand of a lot of people, and no matter what club he's in, I think, because he's such a good player that you know what I mean, he at the minute he's behind the two Burns and he's behind Johnny, but you mean we're speculating on what hasn't happened with 4 massive games ahead of him.
Sure. No, it's just a really interesting question, given that it feels a little bit frustrating, the conversation around Sexton succession, even with some of the bad luck that the likes of Carberry and Harry Byrne in particular have had with injuries over the last little while. And it's not just because Sexton is one of the most famous or most well-known characters in Irish sport. It's because it genuinely is a fascinating debate at the moment as to what situation Ireland will be in at out half come next year's World Cup.
Yeah, it is. You're dead right. It's very obvious for everyone that you mean the time now is who's going to be able to wear that number 10 jersey if Johnny picks up an injury, if Johnny loses form, if someone comes out of the pecking order and pushes hard for that starting spot.
How do Ireland win this game tomorrow?
By taking away New Zealand's time and space. I think that's the absolute key. For me, I think what you cannot do to a lot of New Zealanders with their space and with their times, you can't give them that extra second to make decisions. So in terms of, I suppose, attacking without the ball, you have to press hard and leave the space on the outside. Yeah, their skill level may be good enough to get the ball there, but I think that will only come about off a short attacking kicking game if the line is fast and connected. And with the ball, I think Ireland will find opportunities with the ball. I genuinely believe that. I think if they can kind of stretch them beyond the 15 metres on both sides, I think they'll find a bit of joy in one or two defenders, hopefully getting attracted to men as opposed to towards the ball.
Got to put one comment to you here. Listener Bart Connolly's been in touch to say, would La Rochelle take Frawley?
La Rochelle take, yeah, he's a great player, yeah, of course they will, but our recruitment is done.
Okay, right, I see. Give us a prediction for the series then. What's it going to be, scoreline?
I can't even give you a prediction for tomorrow's game. I'm going to be fascinated to see the first 10 minutes. I just want to really enjoy, I suppose. It's great actually not being involved in a big game, being able to watch it on a Saturday morning. I'd be fascinated to see how it starts, but I genuinely believe that there's a big opportunity for Ireland. I think when you strip back, I suppose, what's behind, you know, in my day, so many of us, whatever way we were brought up, made the big error of playing the jersey as opposed to playing the person that's in the jersey. And I think Ireland will be smart to realise once you get the kind of, I suppose, detailed information on the players they're facing, yeah, they're good players, but like anyone else, there's a result to be had if Ireland are top of their game.
Ronan O'Gara, great stuff as ever. Thanks a million for being with us.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks a million.
Enjoy the down after the coffee. See you, Johnny. Cheers.
All the best.